The moment Nia Williams locked eyes with the dying man on her operating table, she made a choice that would destroy her life and save it. She'd seen hundreds of gunshot wounds in 6 years at Baltimore General, but something about this patient made her pause. Through and through gunshot wound, clean, professional, someone wanted him to suffer, not die quickly. Then his hand shot out, impossibly fast for someone half dead, his grip locked around her wrist like iron. If I die, you die. Understand? She should have called security, should have pressed the panic button hidden under the table, should have done 100 things to keep herself safe. Instead, she looked him dead in those black ice eyes and said, "Then I guess you better not die. Now let go of me so I can save your ungrateful ass." That decision would cost her everything. Her apartment shot up, 17 rounds fired while her 6-year-old daughter should have been sleeping. Black roses appeared at her door with notes that said, "You're mine now, Nia Williams." That's how this works. 3 months later, she was pregnant with a mobster's baby. 6 months later, he was arrested, facing 20 years, and she stood in that prison visiting room with her hand on her belly and said, 5 years. We'll be waiting. This is the story of how a single moment of mercy became an obsession neither of them could escape. Have you ever made one decision, one choice in a single moment that changed the entire trajectory of your life? Stay with me to see how far love can go when it's built on blood, bullets, and a promise that should have never been made. The clock on the wall read 2:17 a.m., Baltimore General's night shift, the shift where the real traumas rolled in, where the gang violence and desperation and darkness of the city spilled through the ER doors in waves of blood and screaming. Nia had been on her feet for 16 hours straight. Her lower back ached. Her ex-husband, Mark, wouldn't stop texting about custody arrangements for their 6-year-old daughter, Luna. Her mother needed her diabetes medication refilled and couldn't afford it. Student loans were crushing her slowly, one automatic payment at a time. She was exhausted in the way that goes deeper than physical. Soul tired, the kind of tired that makes you forget what it feels like to not be tired. Her natural hair was pulled back in a bun that had started the shift neat and was now barely holding together. Her scrubs couldn't hide her curves, no matter how much she wished they would. The male patients always noticed, always commented, always made her job harder. Her eyes had seen too much death to be shocked by much anymore. At 32, she felt 50. The ambulance radio crackled with static. Incoming GSW, no ID, patient refused to give name, multiple lacerations, possible gang activity, ETA 3 minutes. Nia rolled her eyes at the resident beside her, a nervous first-year named Collins, who still jumped at loud noises. Another gangbanger who won't cooperate with police. Just another Tuesday in Baltimore. But when the gurney came crashing through those double doors, when she saw the man strapped to it, everything changed. He was unconscious now, but his presence filled the trauma bay like smoke. The EMTs were rattling off vitals, BP dropping, significant blood loss, wound to the upper right chest, possible pneumothorax, but Nia was barely listening. She was staring. His suit was expensive, Italian, probably, custom-tailored to a body that, even through the blood and torn fabric, she could tell was a weapon. All lean muscle and controlled power. His hands were elegant, manicured, but his knuckles were scarred. Fighter's hands hiding in gentleman's gloves. When they cut away his shirt, Nia had to suppress a sharp inhale. His torso was a roadmap of violence. Old scars crisscrossed his abdomen, some surgical, some clearly from blades, and tattoos, black ink that covered his left shoulder and part of his chest, symbols and characters she didn't recognize but instinctively knew, meant something dark, something organized, something that would get her killed if she knew too much. The bullet wound itself was strange, too precise. The angle was calculated, meant to miss anything vital while causing maximum pain. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong or a random gang shooting. This was a message. She was elbow deep in his chest, checking for internal bleeding, when his eyes snapped open. No slow awakening, no groaning or confusion, just instant, terrifying awareness. He surveyed the trauma bay in one sweeping glance, cataloguing exits, personnel, threats, before his gaze locked on Nia. Recognition flickered across his face, as if he'd been expecting to see her specifically, which was impossible since they'd never met. Eodia. The Korean came out rough. Then he switched seamlessly to English with barely an accent. Where am I? You're in a hospital. You were shot. I need you to stay still, or you'll tear my sutures. Nia kept working, threading another stitch through skin that felt like leather. This man had been hurt before, many times. No police. It wasn't a request. Sir, I have to report gunshot wounds. It's the law. His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist again, not painfully this time, but firmly. His thumb pressed against her pulse point, and she knew he could feel how fast her heart was racing. No. Police. Each word was distinct, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. This was a man used to being obeyed. The smart thing would have been to call security, sedate him, report him. The right thing, the legal thing, the safe thing. But Nia looked into those black eyes and saw something that made her pause. Not cruelty, though she sensed he was capable of terrible cruelty. Not insanity, just certainty. The bone-deep knowledge that involving the police would result in consequences she couldn't imagine, and beneath that, something else, something that looked almost like curiosity. Let go of me, she said quietly, or I'll sedate you so hard you'll sleep for a week. The residents around her had gone silent, tense, waiting to see what would happen. He studied her face like he was reading a book written in a language only he understood. Then, slowly, he released her wrist, but he kept staring with an intensity that made her feel naked, despite her scrubs and isolation gown. What's your name? He asked. She hesitated. Giving him her name felt dangerous, like handing over a piece of herself she couldn't get back. Like giving him power. Nurse Williams, she said firmly. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it had reached his eyes. Liar. Your badge says Nia. Damn. She'd forgotten about the ID badge clipped to her scrubs. Nia Williams, he repeated slowly, like he was tasting each syllable. Thank you for saving my life, Nia Williams. I'm not done saving it yet. Stay still. She finished suturing in tense silence. Every time she glanced up, he was watching her with that unnerving intensity. Not sexual, though there was heat there. A spark of something she absolutely did not have time or space in her life to acknowledge. But more than that, he was assessing her, studying her like he was making calculations, reaching decisions that would affect them both. You're very good at this, he said quietly after several minutes. I know. Not afraid of blood. I've seen worse than you. He actually laughed. It was a rusty sound, like he didn't do it often, like maybe he'd forgotten how. I doubt that, Nia Williams. I very much doubt that. A security guard named Marcus poked his head through the trauma bay curtain. Everything okay in here, Nia? We got a report of an uncooperative patient. Before Nia could answer, the stranger spoke up, his voice suddenly warm and friendly. Everything's fine. She's excellent. We're old friends, actually. I was just telling her about the hunting accident. The lie was smooth as silk, delivered with a self-deprecating smile that transformed his face from dangerous to merely handsome. Marcus looked uncertain. Hunting accident. Stupid, I know. Wrong place, wrong time. I'm just grateful I made it to the best trauma nurse in Baltimore. It was such obvious bullshit that Nia almost laughed. But Marcus seemed satisfied, nodding as he backed out. All right then. You need anything, Nia? You holler. The moment they were alone again, as alone as you could be in a busy ER with only a curtain for privacy, Nia rounded on him. I'm not lying to the police for you. You already did. You didn't press the panic button. She stopped, because he was right. The button was on the wall behind her, easy reach, and she hadn't touched it. You knew the moment you saw me that I wasn't supposed to be here, that reporting me would be complicated for everyone involved. Your instincts are good, Nia. He said her name like a caress, and she hated how much she didn't hate it. She stripped off her gloves with sharp, angry movements. Get out. You're stable enough. There's the door. He sat up slowly, testing his range of motion. The sutures held. He was surprisingly graceful for someone who'd been dying 20 minutes ago, moving like a dancer or a fighter, someone with complete control over their body. When he stood, she was reminded again how tall he was, over 6 feet, broad-shouldered, and even in his ruined clothes and bandages, he radiated the kind of authority that made people step aside on sidewalks. That made them look away rather than meet his eyes. You saved my life, he said simply. That's my job. In my world, that creates a debt. Something about the way he said, my world, made her skin prickle again. She had a sudden, vivid image of what his world might look like. Dark, violent, built on rules she didn't understand. I don't want anything from you, she said, but her voice came out breathier than she intended. He stepped closer. Nia held her ground, even though every instinct screamed to back away. He smelled like expensive cologne under the copper tang of blood, something dark and woody that probably cost more than her monthly rent. This close, she could see that his eyes weren't purely black, but had flecks of amber in them, like gold in stone. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back up to her eyes. Too late. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, intimate in a way that made her stomach flutter. You're mine now, Nia Williams. I own you. That's how this works. The words should have made her angry, should have scared her. Instead, they sent a jolt of something hot and dangerous straight through her core. Excuse me? She found her voice, thank God, and it came out sharp. What the hell did you just say to me? You saved me. You saw me. You know I'm not supposed to exist in your system, that my gunshot wound isn't going to be reported to police, that you made a choice the moment you didn't call security. He leaned in, his lips nearly brushing her ear, and she felt his breath against her skin. That makes you mine. My responsibility, my problem, my property. The last word snapped something inside her. Nia shoved him back, or tried to. He didn't budge, solid as a wall, but he felt the intent behind it. I don't know who the hell you think you are, she hissed, keeping her voice low so the other staff wouldn't hear. But I bow to no man. Not you, not the gangbangers who roll through here every night. Not anybody. I saved your life because that's what I do. That's who I am. But you don't own me. Nobody owns me. So take your debt and your world and get the hell out of my ER. For a moment, just a moment, she thought she'd made a terrible mistake. His expression went cold, flat. The expression of a man who'd killed before and would kill again without losing sleep. Then that dangerous smile returned, wider this time, delighted, almost. I'm Kwon Jae-sung, he said, like the name should mean something, like it was a gift he was giving her. And you'll learn. He walked out, just like that, steady on his feet despite the blood loss, despite the bullet wound she'd just sutured. 2 of the residents tried to stop him, but he brushed past them like they were children. Someone shouted about AMA paperwork, leaving against medical advice, but he was already gone, disappearing through the ER doors into the Baltimore night. Nia stood in the trauma bay, surrounded by bloody gauze and empty syringes, and realized her hands were shaking from fear, she told herself. Not from the memory of his breath against her ear, not from the way he'd said her name, not from the dangerous heat that had sparked between them like a match struck in a room full of gasoline. Fear, that's all it was. She stripped off her isolation gown, her gloves, and went to scrub her hands. The water was cold, but it didn't stop the shaking. She stared at her reflection in the metal paper towel dispenser, distorted, unfamiliar. Who was that woman who'd let a gunshot victim walk out without reporting him? Who'd felt something other than professional concern when he'd grabbed her wrist? Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. A text message that made her blood run cold. Go home safely, Nia. I'll be watching. She should call the police. Report him. Report the message. Do something, anything, to protect herself. Instead, she deleted the text and went back to work. 3 more traumas before her shift ended. A stabbing, an overdose, a car accident, normal Baltimore violence, safe violence, if there was such a thing. But she felt his eyes on her all night, watching from somewhere she couldn't see. The next day was supposed to be normal, supposed to be the regular chaos of single motherhood and exhaustion. Nia picked up Luna from her mother's house in West Baltimore, the same house she'd grown up in, now showing its age with peeling paint and a porch that sagged slightly on one end. Luna bounced out the front door, her natural hair in 2 puffs on either side of her head, wearing the purple dress she'd insisted on that morning. At 6 years old, she had opinions about everything, especially clothes. Mommy, Grandma let me help make cookies, and we made extra for you, but I ate them because you were at work, and they were chocolate chip, which is my favourite. The words came out in one breathless rush as Luna threw herself into Nia's arms. This, right here, was why she worked 16-hour shifts and dealt with blood and death and people like Kwon Jae-sung, for this little girl who smelled like cookies and love. You ate all my cookies, Nia gasped in mock outrage. What am I supposed to do now? Grandma said there's more in the kitchen, but you have to ask nice. Nia's mother appeared in the doorway, 65 and beautiful, despite the diabetes and high blood pressure and exhaustion that came from raising Nia alone and now helping with Luna. Baby girl worked. Hard on those cookies. Figured she earned the right to eat a few. They chatted for a few minutes. Yes, Mama, I'll pick up your prescription tomorrow. No, Mark hasn't sent child support in 2 months. Yes, I'm eating. Stop worrying. Before Nia buckled Luna into her booster seat and headed home. She was 3 blocks from her apartment when she noticed the black Mercedes. It had been behind her when she left her mother's house, still there when she stopped at a red light, and following her through turns she made specifically to check if she was being paranoid. She wasn't being paranoid. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, Luna was chattering in the back seat about some drama with a boy at kindergarten who'd said girls couldn't be astronauts, oblivious to her mother's rising panic. The Mercedes followed them all the way to her apartment building, a converted warehouse in Pigtown that the landlord optimistically called loft-style living and Nia called barely affordable. When she parked, the Mercedes drove past slowly, windows tinted dark, no license plate visible, before disappearing around the corner. "Mommy, you're squeezing my hand too tight." Nia looked down. She'd grabbed Luna's hand without realizing it. "Sorry, baby. Let's get inside." The rest of the evening was aggressively normal. Mac and cheese for dinner because it was Luna's favourite, and Nia was too tired to fight about vegetables. Homework, kindergarten homework, which seemed ridiculous, but the school insisted. Bath time, which turned into a flood when Luna decided her dolls needed to swim. Stories, 3 tonight, because Luna negotiated like a lawyer. Finally, blessedly, Luna's breathing evened out into sleep. Nia stood in the doorway of Luna's tiny bedroom, watching her daughter sleep, and felt the weight of every decision she'd ever made. The good ones, having Luna despite Mark's insistence they weren't ready. Going to nursing school, leaving Mark when he'd cheated for the 3rd time. The bad ones, student loans she'd never pay off, staying at Baltimore General instead of taking that better-paying job in the suburbs, not calling the police last night. She poured herself a glass of wine, cheap red that came in a box, and collapsed on her sagging couch. Her phone sat on the coffee table, silent. No more messages from the unknown number. Maybe he'd forgotten about her. Maybe he'd moved on to whatever mysterious businessmen like him conducted at night. The doorbell rang. Nia froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. It was almost 10 p.m. Nobody rang her doorbell at 10 p.m. unless it was an emergency or trouble, and in her neighbourhood, those were often the same thing. Through the peephole, she saw a delivery man in a uniform, holding an enormous bouquet. Not roses exactly, darker. She opened the door with the chain still latched. "Delivery for Nia Williams. I didn't order anything. Someone did. Sign here, please." Against her better judgment, she opened the door, signed. The bouquet was massive, easily 3 dozen flowers, and they were the darkest red she'd ever seen. Almost black roses. The delivery man left, and Nia carried the flowers inside, her hands trembling slightly. There was a card attached in sharp, masculine handwriting. "Black roses for a queen who isn't afraid of blood. Thank you for my life. I'll be repaying that debt soon." JK. She should throw them away, should call the police and report harassment, should do something other than stand in her tiny apartment staring at flowers that must have cost more than she made in a week. Instead, she found a vase, an old mason jar because she didn't own actual vases, and arranged them. They were beautiful in a dangerous way, like everything about him seemed to be. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She knew who it was before she answered, knew she should let it go to voicemail, knew she was making another bad decision. She answered anyway. "Did you get my flowers?" His voice was different over the phone, somehow more intimate without his physical presence to distract from it. "How did you find where I live?" "I find everything I want to find, Nia." The certainty in his voice should have terrified her. This is harassment. This is courting. Women like flowers, don't they? Black roses symbolize death. Or obsession. His voice dropped lower, rough like velvet. "I can't stop thinking about you. Your hands inside my chest. Your eyes when I grabbed you. You weren't afraid. You were angry. Magnificent. Something hot unfurled in her stomach at the word magnificent. You need to stop this. Why? Because I have a daughter, a life. I can't have some dangerous man calling me at night and sending me flowers and following me in black Mercedes. Silence on the other end. Then, you noticed the car? Of course I noticed. Good. That means it's working. What's working? Keeping you safe. You're mine now, Nia. That means I protect what's mine. The possessive word should have made her angry, should have made her hang up and call the police. Instead, they sent another jolt of heat through her, settling low in her belly. I have to go, she said. But she didn't hang up. Your daughter's name is Luna. She's 6. She goes to Lakeland Elementary. Her favourite colour is purple, and she wants to be an astronaut when she grows up. The heat vanished, replaced by ice-cold fear. How do you stay away from her? You hear me? Whatever debt you think exists, whatever this is, you stay the hell away from my daughter. I would never hurt a child, Nia. Never. I'm telling you this so you understand. I know everything about you now. Where you work, where you live, where your daughter goes to school, where your mother lives. I know your ex-husband is behind on child support, and that you have $73,000 in student loans, and that you take cream in your coffee but no sugar. You're insane. I'm thorough. There's a difference. His voice softened. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you so you'll understand that you're under my protection now. No one will hurt you. No one will touch you, or Luna, or your mother. You're mine, which means you're untouchable. I don't want to be yours. I don't want your protection. I want you to leave me alone. No, you don't. Excuse me? You don't really want me to leave you alone. If you did, you would have hung up by now. You would have thrown away the flowers. You would have called the police. He paused. You can't run from me, Nia. And you don't really want to. She opened her mouth to argue, to tell him he was wrong, to hang up and block his number. But the words wouldn't come, because he was right. God help her. He was right. I have to go, she whispered. Sleep well, my queen. I'll see you soon. He hung up before she could. Nia stood in her living room, phone clutched in her hand, staring at the black roses, and wondered what the hell she was doing. What kind of mother put her child at risk by entertaining the attention of a clearly dangerous man? What kind of woman felt drawn to someone who talked about ownership and debt and protection like they were romantic gestures? But when she finally went to bed, she didn't throw away the flowers. And when she dreamed that night, she dreamed of black eyes and dangerous smiles and hands that could kill or caress with equal ease. 3 days passed, 3 days of Nia jumping every time her phone buzzed, checking over her shoulder constantly, expecting to see him around every corner. He didn't call, didn't text. The black Mercedes disappeared. She should have been relieved. Instead, she was disappointed. And angry at herself for being disappointed. On the 4th day, he walked into Baltimore General's ER waiting room like he owned the place. It was mid-afternoon, the weird dead time between lunch and dinner rushes, when the ER was almost peaceful. Nia was at the nurse's station, charting, when she felt the energy in the room change, felt every head turn toward the entrance. She looked up, and her heart stopped. Kwon Jae-sung stood in the doorway wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. The sutures in his shoulder were gone, too soon for them to be removed, which meant he'd either taken them out himself or had a private doctor. He looked like money and danger and sex wrapped in Italian wool. and every person in that waiting room was staring. A young nurse named Stephanie actually sighed. "Who is that?" Nia couldn't answer because her throat had gone dry. He scanned the waiting room with the same assessing gaze she remembered. Then his eyes found her, locked on. He smiled, slow and deliberate, and started walking towards the nurse's station. Her supervisor, Martha, a 50-year-old woman who didn't tolerate nonsense from anyone, intercepted him. "Sir, this is a hospital, not a social call. If you're not a patient or visiting someone, I'm here to donate." His voice carried across the waiting room, commanding attention without being loud. He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to Martha with a smile that could melt steel. "I heard this ER is underfunded. I'd like to help." Martha blinked, taking the card. "That's very generous, but my people will wire $500,000 to your operating fund today." He said it casually, like 500,000 was pocket change. "All I ask is a moment with Nurse Williams. She saved my life last week during what I now realise was a fairly dramatic entrance to your excellent facility. I wanted to thank her properly." Nia watched Martha's eyes go wide as she processed that number. $500,000. That would buy new equipment, cover staffing shortages, fund the pediatric expansion they'd been fighting for. That's incredibly generous, Mr. Kwon. Jae-sung Kwon."
Martha was already nodding, already turning to Nia with an expression that said, "Don't you dare screw this up. Nurse Williams, take your break. Show Mr. Kwon to consultation room 3. Nia wanted to refuse, wanted to tell Martha she couldn't be bought, wanted to walk away. But $500,000 could save lives, could help patients. And besides, Martha was already practically pushing her toward him. She led Jae-sung down the hallway in silence, feeling his presence behind her like heat. They stepped into consultation room 3, a small space, barely larger than a closet, with one desk, 2 chairs, and posters about hand-washing on the walls. And she closed the door. Then she whirled on him. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Ensuring you can't avoid me. This is my workplace. And now I'm its biggest donor." He leaned against the desk, completely at ease in a way that made her want to scream. "Which means you'll be seeing a lot of me. Hospital board meetings, fundraisers, tours of the facility to see where my money is going. You think money gives you the right to stalk me? I think," he said, pushing off the desk and stepping closer, "that you're the first woman in 10 years who's looked at me like I'm just a man, not a monster, not a king, not a means to an end, just a man, and I find that I want more of it." He was close now, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. In the small consultation room, he seemed enormous. Nia backed up instinctively until she hit the wall. "I'm not interested in whatever this is," she said. But her voice lacked conviction. "Yes, you are." His hand came up to rest against the wall beside her head, caging her in without touching her. "Your pulse is racing. I can see it in your neck. You've thought about me the last 3 days, wondered where I was, wondered if I'd lost interest, wondered what," she snapped, trying to find her anger through the heat pooling in her stomach. "Wondered if some mafia boss was done playing games, if I could go back to my normal life. Wondered what it would be like." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, intimate and rough. What it would feel like to let go, to surrender to someone strong enough to catch you when you fall. His free hand came up, thumb tracing her jawline with a touch so light it was barely there. Nia's breath caught. "You're so tired, Nia, I can see it. You're strong for everyone else, for your daughter,
your mother, your patience. You hold everything together, and nobody asks if you need holding together. What if you could be weak with me? What if you could let someone else be strong? For one heartbeat, she wanted it. Wanted to lean into his touch, close the distance between them, taste that cruel mouth, and see if it was as dangerous as it looked. Wanted to stop carrying everything alone. Reality crashed back. She shoved him away, actually shoved him this time with both hands against his chest. He stepped back, allowing it. I have a daughter, she said firmly. A life. Responsibilities. I'm not some prize you won because I did my job. His expression shuttered, going cold again. He straightened, adjusted his cuffs with precise movements. You're right. You're not a prize. He stepped back, creating distance that somehow felt like loss. You're a queen, and you deserve to be treated like one. He moved towards the door, and Nia felt panic flutter in her chest. He was leaving. This was what she wanted. So why did she feel like she was losing something? The donation is real, he said without turning around. 500,000, no strings attached. Use it to save lives. That's what you do, isn't it? Then he was gone. Nia stood in the consultation room, her back against the wall, her heart racing, and tried to remember why letting him leave was the right choice. That night, her bank account showed a deposit of $50,000. The memo line read, "For the Queen's student loans, first installment, JK." Nia stared at her phone screen until the numbers stopped making sense. $50,000, just sitting in her checking account like it was nothing. Like it wasn't more money than she'd saved in her entire life. Like it wouldn't change everything. She should send it back, should report it, should do something other than sit on her couch at midnight, Luna asleep in the next room, and cry. Because it was too much. The flowers, the protection, the money. It was too much and not enough, and exactly what she'd never known she wanted. Someone to see her, really see her. Not Nia the nurse, Nia the mother, Nia the struggling single parent who held everything together with determination and duct tape. Just Nia. The woman, the queen, he'd called her. She fell asleep on the couch with her phone in her hand, dreaming of black roses and dangerous men who paid off student loans. The siege began slowly. Every morning for 2 weeks, coffee appeared at the nurse's station with her name on it. Not just any coffee, her exact order from the expensive place downtown that she never went to because it cost $8. Iced vanilla latte with oat milk and an extra shot. How did he know? Flowers arrived at her apartment every 3 days. Different flowers each time, each arrangement more stunning than the last, each with a card in that sharp handwriting. Queens deserve gardens. Thinking of you. Have you smiled today? Her car was detailed while she was at work. She came out to find it spotless, the dent in the passenger door mysteriously fixed, the oil changed, new tyres that she desperately needed but couldn't afford. Then the real bomb dropped. Luna's school called. There had been an error in their records. Luna's tuition for the year had been paid in full by an anonymous donor. Nia knew immediately who it was. She called the number he'd called from before. It rang once. "Hello, my queen. You can't pay for my daughter's school. Too late. It's done." Jae-sung. His name felt strange on her tongue. Intimate. This is too much. It's not nearly enough. Luna deserves the best education. She's going to be an astronaut. Remember? Despite everything, Nia smiled. "You're impossible. I'm generous with what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet." The certainty in his voice sent shivers down her spine. I should hate you for this. For trying to buy me. I'm not trying to buy you, Nia. I'm trying to show you what life could be like if you let me take care of you, if you stopped carrying everything alone. I don't need taking care of. Everyone needs taking care of, even queens. His voice softened. Have dinner with me. No. One evening, one meal. If you still want me gone after, I'll disappear. I promise. You promise? She shouldn't be considering this, shouldn't be tempted, but she was so tired of being strong, so tired of struggling. I never promise what I can't deliver. Dinner, that's all I'm asking. She should say no, should hang up, should report him to someone, anyone. One dinner, she heard herself say, and then you leave me alone. If that's still what you want after, yes. It wouldn't be what she wanted. They both knew it. But she said yes anyway. He picked her up on a Saturday when Luna was with Mark for the weekend. One of the rare weekends Mark actually showed up for his custody time. Nia spent an hour getting ready, which was ridiculous. This wasn't a real date. This was her proving to herself that she didn't want this, didn't want him, could walk away. She wore a simple black dress that hugged her curves, left her natural hair loose and wild, put on the lipstick that always made her feel powerful. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. When had she last dressed up for a man? When had she last felt beautiful instead of just exhausted? The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. Jae-sung stood in her doorway wearing dark slacks and a black button-down that made him look like sin incarnate. His eyes travelled over her slowly, appreciatively, and she felt that gaze like a physical touch. Aram Darweo, beautiful, he murmured. I don't know what that means. It means you're beautiful. It means I'm the luckiest man in Baltimore tonight. He drove her to a restaurant she'd never heard of, the kind of place that didn't advertise because they didn't need to. A rooftop overlooking the inner harbour, the city glittering below them. They were led to a private room, floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides, a table set for 2 with candles and wine. This is too much, Nia said, but she couldn't keep the wonder out of her voice. This is what you deserve. They sat. Wine was poured, something red and expensive that she didn't know how to pronounce. Food appeared without them ordering, small plates of things she'd never tried. He watched her taste each one, seeming to take pleasure in her pleasure. Tell me about her, he said after they'd eaten in comfortable silence for a while. Your daughter. Nia looked up, surprised. Why? Because she's part of you, the part that makes you fight so hard. Something in her chest cracked open. Mark had never asked about Luna. Not really. He saw their daughter as an obligation, a box to check, not as the miracle she was. So, she told him, about Luna's obsession with space, how she could name all the planets and most of the moons, about her fierce determination, the way she stood up to bullies twice her size, about her laugh that sounded like bells, about bedtime stories and skinned knees, and the way she said, I love you, Mommy, like it was the most important thing in the world. Jae-sung listened like she was telling him the secrets of the universe. She sounds extraordinary, he said when she finally stopped talking, like her mother. Nia's throat tightened. What about you? How does a Korean man end up running whatever you run in Baltimore? His expression darkened slightly. My father brought me here when I was 16. Our organisation needed American presence. I never planned to stay. But you did. Korea was complicated. Here, I could build something powerful. He leaned forward and she was caught again by those eyes, gold flecks glowing in candlelight. I won't lie to you, Nia. I'm not a good man. I hurt people. I make decisions that keep me awake at night, but I protect what's mine, and I'm very, very good at it. What you're building, is it legal? Some of it. Most of it, no. His honesty was startling. Most men would have lied, made excuses. He just stated facts. Why me? She asked quietly. You could have anyone. Women who understand your world, who wouldn't be complicated. Because when you looked at me bleeding out on your table, you didn't see a monster or an opportunity. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped. No hesitation, no judgment. He reached across the table, took her hand, his thumb stroked her palm, and electricity shot up her arm. And because when I told you I owned you, you told me to go to hell. No one does that. No one dares. Maybe they should dare more often. Maybe. But they're not you. He stood, still holding her hand, and pulled her to her feet. The private room had a small space near the windows, and he drew her there, one hand at her waist, the other still holding hers. What are you doing? Dancing with a queen? There was no music, but he swayed them gently anyway, and Nia found herself following his lead. They moved slowly in the candlelight, the city glittering below, and she felt something shift inside her, something that had been locked tight and safe, cracking open despite her best efforts. I want you, Nia, he said softly, his mouth near her ear. Not as property, not as payment, as mine, my woman, my equal, my... She kissed him. She didn't know who moved first. Maybe they both did. Maybe it was inevitable. But suddenly his mouth was on hers, and the world caught fire. It was desperate, consuming. His hand slid into her hair, tilted her head back, angled her exactly how he wanted her. She tasted wine and want. His other hand gripped her waist, pulled her flush against him, and she felt every hard plane of his body against her softness. Plates clattered. Someone might have knocked over a wine glass. Nia didn't care. His tongue swept into her mouth, and she moaned, actually moaned, her hands fisting in his shirt. He kissed like he did everything else, with absolute certainty, taking exactly what he wanted while somehow making her feel worshipped. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers, his hands framing her face like she was precious. I can't, she whispered. You're dangerous. Luna will be safer than she's ever been. I swear it. How can you promise that? Because anyone who wants to hurt you has to go through me first, and no one goes through me. The certainty in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel safe for the first time in years. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. With a curse in Korean, he pulled it out and glanced at the screen. His entire expression changed, going from warm to ice cold in a heartbeat. I have to go. Now. What's wrong? Business. The word was clipped, final. But his hand shook slightly as he grabbed his jacket. I'm taking you home. Jae-sung, you're scaring me. He stopped, turned to face her fully. There was fear in his eyes, real fear. Whatever message was on that phone had shaken him. When I drop you off, I want you to pack a bag. Get Luna from Mark. Go to your mother's house. Stay there tonight. What? Why? Just trust me, please. His voice cracked on the last word. The drive to her apartment was silent and fast. Too fast. He kept checking his mirrors, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. When he pulled up to her building, he grabbed her hand before she could get out. I'm sorry, he said. I should have stayed away. I tried, Naya. God, I tried. but I
couldn't. You're not making sense. Just go to your mother's. Promise me. She promised. He kissed her hard, desperately, like it might be the last time. Then he was gone, tires squealing as he peeled out of the parking lot. Nia stood on the sidewalk, her heart hammering, and knew something terrible was coming. She did exactly what he said. Packed a bag with trembling hands, called Mark and demanded he bring Luna over immediately. He complained, but something in her voice made him comply. Within an hour, she was driving to her mother's house in West Baltimore, Luna chattering happily in the back seat, completely unaware. Her mother took one look at Nia's face and knew. But she didn't ask questions, just pulled them both inside and locked the door. That night, Nia lay awake in her childhood bed with Luna sleeping beside her. At 2 a.m., her phone lit up with a news alert.